they were jihadists. The refusal to use the term jihadist, as Andy has pointed out, that if you can't name your enemy, you can't win the war. If you can't name the enemy as radical Islam, and we're not talking about all Islam, we're talking about radical Islam. If you can't name the enemy as radical Islam, there's no pretense to even pretending that you can win the war against radical Islam in the military arena or in the political arena. And in the political arena, the high priests of political correctness have made it such that you can't even use the term radical Islam, either in the Washington Post or on MSNBC. By the way, when I was asked a couple of years ago whether I believed in the use of coercive interrogation techniques in Gitmo to make prisoners talk, I said, no, just make them watch Chris Matthews for 2 hours and they'll say anything.
Get that little tingle up their leg.
Yeah, they get that tingle up their leg also, as Andy reminded me. And no, it's not a crime, Chris, to call Al-Qaeda. Yeah, right. As he said to the other day, he says, is it a crime to call Al-Qaeda? It's a crime to be Chris Matthews. That's what it is. I think the inhibitions, the self-censorship now that we now see in terms of discussing radical Islam, plus the prohibitions put on by this administration in terms of this president has not once used the term radical Islam. When he was asked by various reporters who was the enemy during the campaign, he would say Al-Qaeda. Of course, Al-Qaeda is an enemy, but it's a subcontract, it's a subset of a larger enemy, of radical Islamists. Hezbollah is an enemy. Hamas is an enemy. Al-Jihad is an enemy. Vanguards of the Conquest is an enemy. The Muslim Brotherhood is an enemy. That's the parent group of all Sunni terrorist groups. And yet the president refuses and has refused to utter the term radical Islam or militant Islam or jihadist. He always says violent extremists. Is he talking about eco-terrorists? Is he talking about animal environmentalists? Who's he talking about? He refuses to use the term. He's talking about you guys, right. You're the extremists. And you should be proud of being so. So, in the end, we have self-censorship plus the prescriptions put on by our politicians, plus the new efforts, as Andy has pointed out, by international tribunals, by the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Conference, plus the UN, to criminalize any criticism of militant Islam. Look at what Mark Stein, the writer in Canada, has had to endure in Canada. He's had to go through 3 tribunals because he was accused of hate speech, all because he criticized Islamic terrorists. Geert Wilders has been brought up on charges in his own country that he's engaged in hate speech. He was barred from coming into Britain because of, quote, hate speech, while jihadists come and go all the time, even with AK-47s into Britain. The fact is that this effort to criminalize discussions of militant Islam, to politicize it to the point where it makes it impossible to utter the term radical Islam, is the reason why radical Islam continues to proliferate and prosper. Because there is no effort within the Islamic community to delegitimize radical jihadists. Why? Because there's no pressure on them. If they are not called upon within their own community to basically out the jihadists, and let's face it, the mainstream of the Islamic community in the United States is controlled by the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood believes that jihad is perfectly acceptable and prescribes it as normal behavior. So if the Muslim Brotherhood organizations are allowed to prosper without any effort or any pressure or any criticism that's placed upon them to become delegitimized because they offer and they endorse jihad, then there isn't going to be any effort at all to root out jihadism. Number two, the equation that the war on terror is a war on Islam. This has been the murderous ideological doctrine that has basically fostered all of the jihadist attacks against the United States, from Al-Qaeda to Hezbollah to the Fort Dix would-be attacks, to the Little Rock, Arkansas attack, to the North Carolina attack. That type of equation has to be rooted out. And unfortunately, this administration has abetted that equation by allowing groups like CARE, ISNA, ICNA, all of the 3- and 4-star Muslim Brotherhood groups to gain access to the administration and to become legitimized. Nothing could be more dangerous to the American public. Thank you very much.